The distress signal echoed across the void, a desperate plea carried on frequencies unfamiliar to most species. It originated from a battered vessel called the Valkna, its crew comprised of Udari engineers, Lelskian pilots, and a particularly stubborn Yin medic. Their ship, once a testament to advanced engineering, now drifted in hostile space, its hull scorched and systems failing. Pursued by an enemy fleet they couldn't hope to outrun or outgun, the crew had made a choice, to send a blind cry for help into the cosmos, a long shot at survival. Gralin, one of the younger Udari, stared nervously at the flickering communication console. His furred hands trembled as he whispered, "Do you think anyone will come?" His 4 ears twitched, betraying the terror he tried to suppress. Beside him, Captain Ralev, the ship's stoic Lelskian leader, kept his gaze fixed on the dim starfield outside. His scaled face bore the wear of countless battles, but even his resolve seemed fragile now. "We sent the signal," he said flatly, though his voice held no conviction. "If there's anyone out there. Maybe." The message, encoded in every known galactic dialect, was simple: assistance needed. Hostile forces in pursuit. Coordinates attached. It was an act of desperation, launched into the abyss with little hope. The odds of anyone receiving it in this remote sector were slim. The odds of that someone caring enough to respond were even slimmer. 3 light-years away, the Revenant, flagship of the Deathworlder fleet, intercepted the transmission. Humanity, the dominant species among the Deathworlders, had earned its reputation across the stars. They hailed from Earth, a planet known as a Deathworld by alien standards, a place where nature itself seemed designed to challenge survival. Its crushing gravity, volatile weather, and relentless predators had forged a species defined by adaptability and tenacity. Other Deathworld species respected humanity, but most of the galaxy feared them. They were the monsters other monsters whispered about. Commander Lena Ward sat in the command chair, her sharp eyes scanning the holographic display as the signal replayed. The bridge of the Revenant buzzed with quiet efficiency, its crew a mix of humans and other Deathworld species, each one a veteran of countless campaigns. "It's a distress signal," Lieutenant Cole said, leaning against the console with his usual air of grim amusement. "Sounds desperate. Might be a trap." Lena smirked, her expression colder than the void outside. "If it's a trap, someone's about to regret it. Plot a course. Let's see what we're dealing with." The Revenant emerged from hyperspace hours later, a predator slipping into an unsuspecting reef. Before them was the Valkna, adrift and barely functional, its hull pockmarked with battle scars. Surrounding it, 3 enemy frigates circled like sharks around wounded prey. The Revenant's crew recognized the design immediately: Sarek Raiders, a brutal faction known for targeting civilian ships in fringe territories. Their ships were sleek, fast, and lethal in packs, but they were nothing compared to the Deathworlder fleet. The Revenant wasted no time. Lena barked orders, and the ship's weapons roared to life. Railguns fired tungsten slugs at near-light speed, punching through enemy shields and hulls with brutal efficiency. Plasma cannons melted armor into slag. Within minutes, 2 Sarek frigates were reduced to debris fields, and the third limped away, its engines flickering. Lena let it go. A survivor would spread the tale. Humans had answered the call. Aboard the Valkna, the crew watched in stunned silence as their tormentors were annihilated. Growlin's ears perked up, his voice shaking as he asked, Who are they?" Captain Ralev stared at the massive ship that now loomed beside them, its silhouette bristling with weaponry. The hull bore a single emblem, a wolf's head, snarling. "Deathworlders," he muttered. "And they're on our side." As the Revenant docked with the Valkna, Lena and her boarding party stepped into the wrecked ship's interior. The aliens flinched at the sight of the humans, their imposing forms clad in battle-worn armor. Lena's voice cut through the tension. "We got your signal. Looks like you've had a rough time. Let's get you out of here." Ralev nodded slowly, his gaze wary but grateful. "You have our thanks," he said. "We didn't think anyone would come." Lena grinned, a predatory edge in her expression. We're not anyone. Now tell us who these bastards are and why they wanted you dead." As the Valkna's crew began to explain, the humans listened intently. The Sarek raiders weren't acting alone, they were hunting the Udari on behalf of a larger force, one that sought to crush resistance in the outer territories. The Valkna carried data crucial to understanding their operations, data that could turn the tide of the conflict. The Deathworlders didn't need convincing. A threat to one was a threat to all. The humans repaired what they could of the Valkna and escorted it to safety, but their mission was far from over. The Deathworlder fleet didn't just respond to cries for help, they turned them into declarations of war. As the Revenant prepared to leave, Lena sent a message across the stars, a warning to the enemy forces that had dared to target the innocent: "You've drawn the attention of humanity. Pray we don't find you." For the Valkna's crew, the Deathworlders were saviors, albeit terrifying ones. For their enemies, they were the stuff of nightmares. The signal had been a desperate gamble, a scream into the void. They hadn't expected anyone to answer. They certainly hadn't expected the Deathworlder fleet. As the Valkna limped toward the nearest Deathworlder-aligned outpost under the Revenant's escort, the air aboard the Udari vessel remained thick with tension. Gralin hovered near the ship's main viewport, his wide eyes fixed on the massive human warship that now loomed protectively beside them. The Revenant bristled with weapons and armor, its predatory silhouette a stark contrast to the sleek, utilitarian design of the Valkna. "They came," he muttered to himself, his voice still laced with disbelief. "They actually came." Captain Ralev placed a firm hand on Gralin's shoulder. "Focus. We survived, yes, but we're not out of danger yet. The data we carry is too valuable. If the Sarek were willing to chase us this far, others will come." Gralin nodded, pulling his attention back to the task at hand. The Valkna's systems were in disarray, and every available crew member was working feverishly to stabilize the ship. The Deathworlders had bought them time, but their journey wasn't over. Meanwhile, aboard the Revenant, Commander Lena Ward stood in the Situation Room, a holoprojection of the Valkna and its enemies slowly rotating above the table. Around her, senior officers and analysts reviewed the data the humans had extracted from the Valkna's damaged systems. "Looks like the Sarek weren't just out for blood," Lieutenant Cole remarked, gesturing to a stream of intercepted communications. "They wanted this crew, and whatever intel they're carrying, off the board." "It's more than just pirate opportunism," added Ensign Ramirez, her fingers flying across the interface. "The Sarek were funded and equipped by the Irashian Dominion. Look at these supply logs, they don't have the resources to operate ships like that on their own." Lena leaned forward, her expression hardening. The Irasians were one of the galaxy's more insidious powers, known for backing proxy wars and destabilizing regions they wanted to conquer. Their involvement turned this incident into something far more dangerous. "Which means this wasn't a random attack," Lena said, her voice steady but cold. "The Irasians see something worth killing for. Let's figure out what." The analysis didn't take long. The Valkna had been carrying a cache of navigational data, salvaged from an ancient derelict discovered on the edge of uncharted space. The data wasn't complete, but it hinted at something extraordinary, a long-lost network of hyperspace routes that could bypass the Irasians' primary defense lines. Lena straightened, a glint of determination in her eyes. "If the Dominion gets their hands on this, they could lock down the entire sector. If we secure it, we could outflank them. Either way, this changes the game." Her officers exchanged grim looks. They all knew what came next. "Prepare the fleet," Lena ordered. "We're taking the fight to the Irasians. If they're hunting our allies, we'll make sure they never forget what happens when they cross Deathworlders." The Valkna reached the Deathworlder outpost safely, and its crew was immediately taken into protective custody. The humans worked with the Udari and their allies to decode the remaining fragments of the navigational data. What they found was staggering, a lattice of forgotten hyperspace corridors, some of which led directly to the heart of Irasian-controlled space. Lena didn't wait for bureaucratic approval. The Deathworlder coalition prided itself on swift, decisive action. Within days, the Revenant and a dozen other warships were on the move, their course set for an Irasian outpost near one of the ancient hyperspace routes. The battle was short but brutal. The Irasians had been caught off guard, their defenses optimized for the known trade routes, not the hidden passages that the Deathworlders exploited. The fleet swept through like a storm, dismantling the Dominion supply lines and exposing vulnerabilities that had long been hidden behind layers of strategy and deceit. For the Irasians, it was a nightmare realized. For the Deathworlders, it was just another demonstration of their philosophy: strike hard, strike fast, and never leave an enemy the chance to retaliate. By the time the dust settled, the Dominion's grip on the sector had been broken. The Valkna's crew, once stranded and hopeless, were hailed as heroes, their desperate gamble having turned the tide of an entire conflict. Gralin, now stationed at the Deathworlder outpost, often found himself staring at the Revenant whenever it docked. He couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and gratitude. They didn't just save us, he mused aloud one day, his ears twitching thoughtfully. They changed everything. Captain Ralev, standing beside him, gave a slow nod. That's what Deathworlders do, he said. You send a call for help, and they answer. But when they answer, the whole galaxy listens. And for years to come, the memory of that signal, the one that had summoned not just saviors but an unstoppable force, would linger in the minds of everyone who heard its tale. The Irasians' defeat in the sector sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Once considered untouchable, their empire was now exposed. Whispers of the Deathworlder fleet's intervention spread faster than the light of the stars themselves. To some, they were saviors, avengers of the weak. To others, they were harbingers of destruction, a grim reminder of what happened when Deathworlders took notice. At the Deathworlder outpost where the Valkna's crew had taken refuge, life began to settle into a cautious normalcy. Gralin, now assigned to a liaison team working with the humans, had grown used to their strange ways. Unlike the Udari, who valued meticulous planning, humans thrived in chaos. They were unpredictable, impulsive, and, to his surprise, fiercely loyal. One evening, as the outpost's artificial sun dimmed to mimic a planet's twilight, Gralin found himself at a small mess hall table with Lieutenant Cole. The human officer was finishing a plate of something that looked like it might have been alive not long ago. You still look like you're waiting for the other boot to drop, Cole said, grinning. Relax, kid. You're safe here. Gralin's ears twitched nervously. It's not that. It's just. We've gone from fleeing for our lives to sitting here, eating. Whatever that is. It doesn't feel real. Cole chuckled, leaning back in his chair. Welcome to life in the Deathworlder fleet. 1 minute, you're dodging plasma fire. The next, you're trying to convince the galley crew not to serve something that could eat you back. Gralin tilted his head, studying the human. Why did you come? When you got our signal, I mean. You could have ignored it. You didn't owe us anything. Cole's grin faded, replaced by a serious expression. That's not how we work. Out there, he gestured vaguely toward the stars, most species think it's every civilization for itself. But we Deathworlders? We've all had to fight for our survival, every day, just to make it this far. When we see someone else in trouble, we don't ask why they're worth saving. We just show up. Gralin fell silent, his mind turning over Cole's words. Before he could respond, a station-wide alert chimed. Both of them immediately stood, instincts honed by recent events kicking in. Attention, the calm voice of the station's AI announced. Unidentified vessels detected approaching the outpost. All personnel, prepare for potential engagement. Cole slapped Gralin on the shoulder. Looks like break time's over. Stick close to your people, and we'll handle the rest. Gralin hurried to the control room, where Captain Ralev and the rest of the Valkna's senior crew were already monitoring the situation. The display showed a cluster of ships emerging from hyperspace, Sarek raiders, but with heavier support vessels trailing behind. The Irasians weren't done. They'd sent reinforcements. The Revenant and 2 other Deathworlder ships were already deploying. Lena Ward's voice came over the comms, sharp and commanding. All personnel, battle stations, non-combatants, remain in secure zones. We'll intercept before they get close. Growlin's heart pounded as the Deathworlders moved into action. From the viewport, he watched the Revenant surge forward like a predator scenting blood. The alien ships opened fire first, their beams of energy streaking across the void. But the Deathworlders didn't flinch. The Revenant returned fire, its railguns lighting up the darkness. The battle was brutal, faster than anything Growlin could fully process. The Deathworlder ships moved with calculated aggression, exploiting every weakness in the enemy formation. Explosions bloomed like artificial suns as Irration-backed vessels were torn apart. Within minutes, the Sarek fleet was in full retreat, leaving behind only debris and silence. When the alert ended, Growlin slumped against the wall, his legs weak. The outpost had held. The Deathworlders had won again. But this time, something felt different. Captain Ralev approached, his eyes thoughtful. "They're not giving up," he said softly. "They'll keep coming until they've either destroyed us or we've destroyed them." Growlin nodded. "But we're not alone anymore." Ralev's gaze shifted toward the Revenant, still visible through the viewport, its massive frame unmarred by the battle. "No," he said. "We're not." The Deathworlder fleet didn't just protect their allies, they inspired them. For the Udari and the other species who had once lived in fear, the message was clear: resistance wasn't futile. The galaxy had underestimated the Deathworlders for too long. Now, they were learning what it meant to fight alongside them. As the outpost returned to its routine, Lena Ward transmitted a simple message to the Irasians. It wasn't a plea or a threat, it was a promise: "We answered the call. Next time, we'll come for you." In somewhere, in the heart of Irasian space, their leaders surely felt a chill. The Irasians' retreat from the outpost was a tactical withdrawal, but one that carried a deeper, more ominous significance. They weren't just probing Deathworlder defenses, they were escalating. Within days of the skirmish, intelligence reports from other sectors poured in, painting a grim picture. The Dominion wasn't acting in isolation, they were consolidating power, aligning rogue factions, and testing the limits of Deathworlder resolve. On the Revenant, Lena Ward studied the incoming reports with a grim expression. Her officers stood around the holographic display, which showed a growing web of enemy activity stretching across the galaxy. The Dominion's influence was spreading faster than anticipated, and their ultimate goal was becoming clearer: total control of the outer territories. "This isn't just about the Valkna or the hyperspace routes," Lena said, her voice sharp. "They're gearing up for something bigger. They want to control the trade lanes, the resources, and eventually the systems themselves. We can't let that happen." Lieutenant Cole crossed his arms, his brow furrowed. "If they're ramping up this fast, it means they think they can outlast us. We've got to show them they're wrong, and fast." Lena nodded. "Agreed. We need to take the fight to them, hit their staging grounds before they can launch a full-scale campaign. But this isn't just about firepower. We'll need intel, coordination, and allies. Every species the Irasians have terrorized is a potential ally. It's time to remind the galaxy what happens when Deathworlders lead the charge." The plan was audacious, even by Deathworlder standards. The Revenant and its fleet would launch a series of coordinated strikes on key Dominion installations while simultaneously rallying other species to their cause. It was a gamble, but one that played to the Deathworlder coalition's strengths: adaptability, ferocity, and the ability to unite against a common threat. As preparations began, Captain Ralev and the Valkna's crew were invited to join the effort. Though their ship was still undergoing repairs, their knowledge of Irasian tactics and alliances was invaluable. Ralev accepted without hesitation. The Udari had been running for too long, and this was their chance to fight back. In the weeks that followed, the Deathworlder fleet became a force of nature. Using the ancient hyperspace routes salvaged from the Valkna's data, they struck deep into Dominion territory, dismantling supply lines and outposts with brutal efficiency. Each victory sent a ripple of hope across the galaxy. Species that had once viewed the Deathworlders with suspicion now saw them as liberators, allies who would stand by them in the face of oppression. But the Irasians were not so easily defeated. They adapted, deploying countermeasures and fortifying their strongholds. One such stronghold was Korath Station, a massive orbital hub that served as the Dominion's command center in the sector. Capturing it would be a decisive blow, but it wouldn't be easy. The Revenant and its fleet arrived at Korath under the cover of a solar storm, using the interference to mask their approach. As the storm cleared, the Deathworlders launched their assault. The battle was unlike anything the crew of the Valkna had ever seen. Ships clashed in a ballet of destruction, railgun slugs and plasma beams cutting through the void. On the Revenant's bridge, Lena directed the attack with precision. "Focus fire on their shield generators," she ordered. "Once those are down, target their command modules. We don't leave until that station is ours." The Valkna, now partially restored and armed, played a crucial role in the battle. Growlin found himself at the weapons console, his hands steady despite the chaos. Direct hit on their auxiliary engines. He called out, a mix of excitement and determination in his voice. Captain Ralev gripped the armrests of his chair. "Good work, Growlin. Keep it up. This is our fight now." As the Deathworlders and their allies pressed the attack, Korath Station began to falter. Explosions rippled across its surface, and its defenses crumbled under the relentless assault. Finally, after hours of fierce combat, the station's command core was breached. Lena led the boarding party herself, a squad of armored Deathworlders sweeping through the station's corridors. They encountered heavy resistance, but the Irasian defenders were no match for the ferocity of their attackers. By the time Lena reached the central control room, the battle was all but over. Standing among the smoking ruins of the station's command center, Lena transmitted a single message to the Dominion: "Korath is ours. Surrender now, or face annihilation." The capture of Korath Station marked a turning point in the conflict. The Dominion's advance was halted, their forces thrown into disarray. For the first time in decades, the oppressed species of the Outer Territories saw a glimmer of hope. On the outpost where it all began, Growlin stood beside Captain Ralev, watching as the Revenant returned from its latest campaign. The massive ship, battle-scarred but victorious, was a symbol of what they had achieved together. "They answered our call," Growlin said quietly. "And they've shown the galaxy what we can do when we stand together." Ralev nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. "This isn't just their fight anymore. It's ours. And we're not running." The Deathworlders had come, answering a desperate plea for help. But in doing so, they had ignited something far greater, a movement, a coalition, a rebellion. The galaxy had learned to fear the Deathworlders, but now, it was learning to hope. The victory at Korath Station sent shockwaves through the Dominion and its allies. Across the galaxy, oppressed civilizations rallied to the banner of the Deathworlder coalition. For the first time in generations, the Irasians found themselves on the defensive, their carefully orchestrated expansion grinding to a halt under the relentless assault of a united front. But victory brought new challenges. The Deathworlder coalition now found itself at the center of a growing alliance, composed of species with wildly different cultures, priorities, and histories of distrust. Holding such a fragile coalition together required more than firepower. It demanded diplomacy, vision, and a sense of purpose that transcended individual agendas. On the bridge of the Revenant, Lena Ward reviewed the latest communiques from Allied worlds. Proposals for joint operations and supply chain coordination mingled with complaints about resource allocation and demands for leadership roles in the coalition. It was chaos, the kind that made her itch for the simplicity of battle. "Captain Ward," a voice called out, interrupting her thoughts. It was Ensign Ramirez, her expression both nervous and determined. "We've intercepted a high-priority Dominion transmission. It's encrypted, but the source suggests it's critical." Lena leaned forward. "Patch it through to intelligence. I want it cracked yesterday." Within hours, the decrypted message painted a chilling picture. The Dominion, cornered and desperate, was mobilizing a weapon of last resort. Known only as Project Veilfire, it was shrouded in secrecy, but fragments of intelligence suggested it was a planet killer, a weapon designed to annihilate entire biospheres. When Lena presented the information to the Coalition leadership, the reaction was a mix of outrage and fear. The idea of such a weapon being unleashed was horrifying, not just for the potential loss of life but for the message it would send, that resistance to the Dominion would be met with apocalyptic retribution. Captain Ralev, now a key figure in the Coalition, addressed the gathered leaders. "We cannot allow this weapon to be deployed. If the Eurasians succeed, they will use it to break our resolve and destroy everything we fought for." Gralin, standing beside him, added, "But this is not just about stopping the weapon. It's about showing the galaxy that we will not back down, no matter how dear the threat." The Coalition agreed, albeit reluctantly. The Deathworlder fleet, with its unmatched combat prowess, would spearhead the mission to locate and destroy Project Veilfire before it could be activated. It was a dangerous gamble, but the alternative, inaction, was unthinkable. The final confrontation began in a remote star system on the edge of a ration-controlled space. Intelligence had traced Project Veilfire to a hidden facility on a barren moon, protected by a fleet of Dominion warships and planetary defense systems. The odds were daunting, but the Coalition was prepared. The Deathworlder fleet arrived in force, its ships emerging from hyperspace in a blaze of coordinated maneuvers. The Revenant, at the tip of the spear, unleashed a barrage of railgun fire that tore through the Dominion's outer defenses. Behind it, Allied ships from dozens of species followed, their combined firepower creating a wall of destruction that pushed toward the moon. On the bridge of the Valkna, Gralin manned the tactical console with a determination he hadn't known he possessed. The once fleeing Udari ship now fought alongside the most formidable fleet the galaxy had ever seen. Around him, the crew worked with precision, their fear replaced by a grim resolve. "This is it," Captain Ralev said, his voice steady. "For the Udari. For everyone." The battle raged for hours, the Deathworlders and their allies slowly gaining ground. Finally, a breach in the Dominion's defenses allowed a strike team to land on the moon. Lena Ward led the team herself, her armor gleaming under the harsh light of the barren surface. With her were the Coalition's finest, a mix of Deathworlder soldiers and alien specialists. Inside the Dominion facility, they encountered resistance at every turn. The corridors were a labyrinth of reinforced steel and automated defenses, but the strike team pushed forward, their movements a blend of brutal efficiency and unshakable determination. When they reached the core of the facility, Lena's team found the weapon, a massive, cylindrical device pulsating with ominous energy. Dominion engineers scrambled to activate it, but they didn't stand a chance. In minutes, the team had neutralized the defenders and placed charges around the weapon's critical systems. As the countdown ticked down, Lena transmitted a final message to the fleet. "Veilfire is neutralized. Get clear. We're lighting this place up." The strike team evacuated just as the charges detonated. From orbit, the Coalition fleet watched as the facility erupted in a blinding explosion, the weapon reduced to nothing but molten wreckage. The destruction of Project Veilfire marked the beginning of the end for the Eurasian Dominion. Their greatest weapon had been annihilated, and their forces were in disarray. One by one, their strongholds fell to the Coalition, their empire unraveling under the weight of their own hubris. Back at the Deathworlder outpost, Gralin stood with Captain Ralev, watching as Coalition ships passed overhead in a victory procession. The Udari, once refugees, were now celebrated as heroes, their role in the Coalition a symbol of what could be achieved when the oppressed stood together. "They sent a distress signal," Gralin said softly, recalling the moment that had changed everything. "And they didn't just save us. They saved the galaxy." Ralev nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. "And we proved that even Deathworlders aren't the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Unity is." The Deathworlders had answered the call. And in doing so, they had sparked a movement that would reshape the galaxy for generations to come.